Good morning. It's been a long time since I've made a video, probably almost a year. And so I thought this morning, since I had some time, I would try to do an update video for those of you that are wondering where I went. I don't want the video to be about this, but I got very sick. I was diagnosed with something called achalasia, which is where your esophagus quits working the food down, and the bottom muscle stays closed, and therefore you can't get any food to go down. So I ended up on a feeding tube for a couple of months and in waiting on a surgery. There's no cure for achalasia, but they can do some things to make your life a little easier, and one of them is a surgery where they cut the muscle at the bottom of your esophagus to allow the food to go in. Of course, that's the same muscle that keeps your food in your stomach once you eat. So you have to sleep upright, and there are some things. But before surgery, I literally could not even swallow my own spit. It was that bad. So I'm not complaining. I have to do things a little different. I have to drink a lot of water when I eat, and just eat slowly, eat small bites, but I'm actually able to get food down. So just wanted to say that. I do believe that there's probably a correlation between the stress I'm under with my narc and the fact that I'm having these health issues. It started out with heart. I thought it was my heart, and I may have mentioned this in a previous video, but ultimately it wasn't that. It was esophageal spasms, and then after that it started to where it was closing up and I couldn't get anything down. But anyway, I do believe there's a correlation between your health and your physical health and your mental health. So, to bring you up to speed, I'm still with my narc and it still sucks, yes. Good days, bad days. I pretty much try to maintain a separate household, which is the little house that I'm in right now, which just sits behind my house. Things are better that way. My daughter is in kindergarten now, and we are attempting to homeschool her. Aside from the obvious issues of him being a narc, he still seems to care about her. I do notice a few things changing as she is 5.5 now, and she's more curious about the world and boys or things like that. And I do notice a little bit once in a while his extreme love for her sort of slipping to where he gets angry if she notices a boy on TV or doesn't look away quick enough if he tells her there's a scene on TV that she shouldn't be watching. But and she's noticing as well. So you can't expect to raise a child with a narc and not have issues like that. Since the last time I made a video, we did have one major episode where I started proceedings to move him out at the courthouse, and then his behavior became more and more, I want to say, threatening and then pitiful as the date came closer, and I actually chickened out at the last minute, and I'm partly sad to say that, but I will tell you my reasoning. And my reasoning was I began to realize that I would have to share custody of my daughter with him, because although he is not her biological father, he is on the birth certificate and she has his last name, and at her age that would have weight in court. And his family lives in Texas, and so if he had nowhere to go, he would most likely go back to Texas, which would be great for me if he would just leave, but I would be fearful of him taking her, or of him his parents, his mother, I should say, giving him money to hire a lawyer, and him getting equal rights, and me having to send her away. And that became a very real fear as I started researching that. So I chickened out and stepped back, and instead he agreed to go to therapy. So we are going to therapy. We have been for a few months. I don't know where it's going. We have been meeting together and separately with the same therapist. She is new. She is doing her practice hours with her mentor, and I expressed concerns about that in the very beginning, and they told me that if it didn't work, that we could discuss a new therapist at that time. She is very sweet and very naive at the same time, I think, and that concerns me. And the reason why I'm doing this particular topic is because she has questioned me about why I am so into doing research. And that kind of surprises me because she is a well-educated person, and she has a master's degree, obviously, and so do I. And so I'm talking to someone who is highly educated and understands the value of education, but she's asking me, why am I so heavy into research? And I believe that's probably because my narc has said things in his individual meetings to her about how frustrated he is that I've researched his past and researched the, people he was with and so forth. The only reason I researched anything was to educate myself. And so I'm bringing you up to speed. The topic that I want to talk about is, why do we research? Why do we research when we find ourselves in a position like this? And I'm just kind of winging it. So I have some notes, but hopefully it will go halfway smooth. So the first, I think in the beginning, you are researching out of desperation to understand the situation, to gain an understanding. I remember back in the early days of things going south with him, and him calling me names and accusing me of things. And I mean, I believe the names were actually worse back then, but they were very, it was a more wide range of, human garbage and all these interesting names. They are not as bad now, but they are more personal now because he knows me better and he knows how to target, a name that might actually penetrate me and hurt. So, but back then I was aghast at the fact that a human being could turn on someone like so quickly and be so cruel. And his verbal abuse was always in a rageful session. He didn't call me names in a quiet way. The only time he would call me names was when he was sparked to rage, and then boom, it would just unleash. And so in the early days, I researched to understand what was going on, and to educate myself and to try to discover the reality of the situation. And I, having had a mental health background, having worked in the field for 9, almost 10 years, I had some basic knowledge. I had worked with people. I'd worked with borderline people. I'd worked with, the basic bipolar, all the basic stuff. But I had never encountered someone that was like this. And I would research symptoms or the behaviors that I was seeing out of him, and to try to figure out, to try to come up with some kind of an idea of a diagnosis. So I knew what I was dealing with in that person, and then thinking that maybe there was help or some way to get him, therapy, to make our lives better. I mean, that was the main reason why. But as he would be so angry and rageful and screaming at me and calling me all these names. And, also I remember feeling like, if I could just figure out the puzzle piece that was missing, then he would understand that he was completely wrong about me. Like the things he would say, that I was a cheater and I was, all these things. And it's like, no one has ever described me with those words, ever. In my entire life. I came from almost a 25-year marriage, and I've had lots of long-term relationships with people, generally, just in general, and I have never had people say these things about me, so I was thinking that it was a misunderstanding on his part at the beginning. So, and then that's what made me think is something wrong within him that is making such a huge misassessment of me as a person. And having been an empathic person, having helped a lot of people, having, been a kind person all my life, it was astounding to me that someone would think that I was evil and the things he would say. It would just be so out of character for anything I believed about myself or that anyone else had ever told me or believed about me. I didn't have interpersonal relationship problems with others. So that was my first thought. But then as things progressed and I would finally be fed up and say, get out of my house, leave me alone, get out of here. I don't want to be with you anymore. This is the worst relationship I thought that I could ever have chosen for myself. He started making threats, and he would make threats to kill me, or if I proceeded with making him leave, and he would tell me under no uncertain terms that I had to evict him, that he had rights, so he was invoking these tenant rights on me that he was skilled at, and even though I was a landlord, I had never had to evict someone. And plus, having them in your home, I had a little education to learn that he's right. He knows quite well what to do. So as he started making threats to me, I became concerned about my safety and about her safety. And, in the beginning, I left because he wouldn't. I left several times. I went and kept one of my apartments and didn't rent it, and I started staying there, which was in a town about 25 miles away from where my house was that he was in. And then, after, I don't remember, but it was probably 4 or 5 months, I finally went back home, and then I had a big house in that same town that I had been renting to someone from because of my divorce and my son dying, and I had left and gone to this other town. So they were going to buy it, and they ended up not being able to. So I had the opportunity to move back. And it was a house that had what I'm in now, little house in the back, and I thought, okay, perfect area. Got a house up front, even has a separate apartment upstairs, and I thought, we could have separate residences, or at least I could have a place to go. So I moved back in and did that town again, and he moved with me. And I did it with, a lot of thought, thinking that he could have his separate space upstairs and that we could maybe work things out. I'm still trying to think about working things out. I think our daughter was 2 at the time. And I also wanted to be closer to family. I was ready to come home to the town that I had left after all the death and heartbreak. And I was, emotionally broken being with him. And so I thought, even if he followed me here, at least I would have my support system back. So that's what I did. But I still, researched and trying to figure out what was going on. And then at some point, before I started making these videos, I ran across the term narcissist. I had not, I'd heard of it before, but not as a clinical diagnosis. I heard of it as, a selfish person is this. So the idea that it was a clinical diagnosis, it was shocking to me because, like I said, I had never dealt with that. I was very well versed with the DSM-V, the switch from DSM-V 4 to 5, had to update, because that's what I did. I updated treatment plans, and I worked with people and identified behaviors, and I contacted the therapist or the doctor when it looked like the diagnosis that they had no longer fit. Because when you're trying to diagnose someone, they come in with very limited information. You have to make an initial diagnosis, and then from there you tweak and fine-tune that as you learn more about the client. And so that's what I did. But we did not have anyone diagnosed with any of the cluster B diagnoses, however you say that. So that I know of, that was on my caseload. So I just didn't know. But one day I was researching, and I came across the term narcissist. And as I'm reading all of the things that I'm experiencing, because I had typed in a list of the behaviors he was exhibiting, and I don't remember specifically what I typed in at that point, but I was horrified. I was literally horrified. I'm just sitting there, jaw dropped, like, oh my God, this is what I'm experiencing. So I was terrified, and I felt a high need to research again. So I'm researching narcissistic behaviors and personality disorder and cluster B, and my narc has some other things going with it. He's very antisocial. He can't get along with anybody. His dad he's deceased now, but he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. He has never told me that, but his mother did. But my narc happens to be very, very suspicious, and he thinks everyone is out to get him. And that's the reason why he can't get along with anyone, because if the neighbors have a friend that goes by that revs their engine, then they are revving their engine at him. If there's garbage in the yard, then someone has directly targeted him with their garbage, and it's a ploy or a conspiracy type theory. And he thinks that he always thinks people are out to get him. If he has a communication with someone, like the other day, he was washing his car in the neighboring town we used to live in that he always goes to, and he talked to a cop, and he was talking about the situation with the neighbors, that he can't get along with them, and his perception of the whole situation. And the cop was familiar with the town and has worked in the town that we live in, and gave him some feedback. And so he's been now thinking that the cop went there to specifically talk to him, even though it was a completely random, decision on his part to go to the car wash and wash his car. But that's how he views it. So as I'm researching, I began to understand more about his personality. Now, I don't know how that helps me, but it does give me knowledge, and that, to me, that is better than not knowing. And also, I will say that knowledge gives you the power to separate what you're being told about yourself, what you're being told about all the arguments that you have, that it was your fault, all that you're a bad parent, or all these things. Knowledge gives you the information that you need to understand that it is not you. To me, that's the most important part about research, about researching, your specific situation, is when you're concerned that you could be the problem in the beginning, because in the beginning that you're always told that. You're always going to be told you're the problem. But in the very beginning, when you have never had any experience with someone like this, there is a brief period where you think, could I be so wrong about myself? And you start to look at it from that angle, and even talk to a few friends. Do you see this in me? Because you don't want that in your personality. So without research, I would never have come to the understanding that he has a problem. And I would also never come to the understanding that the problem we have between us is not a relationship problem. And if you categorize it as such, then you're putting some blame back onto the victim, instead of seeing it for what it is, which is a personality problem, personality disorder on the part of the aggressor, and that there is nothing that the victim could ever do to change the situation, and that if you expect the victim to not, provoke him or something of that nature, that is very unfair and unhealthy to do. And so going into the therapy, in our first couple of sessions, she did one separate, then she did one with him, one with me, and then back together. And that fourth one back together, she taught us how to do I statements. And, and I feel this way. You did this, now I feel this way. And, we have had a hard time listening to her instruction. And partly because I don't really think she even has seen us enough to understand the real problem. And I have an issue with her needing to know the actual issues, and that she can't really help us until she does. So, he actually got kind of into it with her in that session, and she finally told him to shut up, told him to stop talking, and he said, why? Why can she talk and I can't talk? And she said, because I'm talking now. But then the next session that I was with her was with just me, because at that time we said, you know what, we need more alone, more one-on-one, and then together. So I went the next time, which was the fifth time, and I told her then, I said, I statements and identifying me identifying my feelings to him, because that's the whole point of the I statement, is not the direction we need to take in this situation. I said, I am not even comfortable sharing my feelings with him, because he uses them against me later, because that's what he does. He's an information gatherer, and he is not going to break down and say, oh my God, I did not know this is how you're feeling, because I've already been through this with him. If I tell him how I feel, he will make fun of me about it later. And I already know that because he's done it in so many instances. So I, told her that, and she told me then, stop researching. And so I'm really bothered by the fact that a therapist would tell you to stop researching a topic that has consumed your life for the past 6.5 years. When, I don't know. But at that session, I let her listen to a couple of the many audios that I have of my narc screaming at me. And I wanted her to hear the insults and to hear, just to be able to analyze it from as close to the beginning as I can get it, because I don't always know that he's going to explode, but I can definitely hit the mic or hit the record button once I see it going south. And so I let her listen to one where he had come in and he was angry about the fact that I had milk in the fridge and I did not have tea. And so his conclusion was that I went to the store and I got milk, but I knew he was out of tea and had been for a couple of days and didn't get it. And I had previously told him that the store was out of that particular brand of tea, which is the only one he'll drink. And they would not have it in for another couple of days. But the other part of that was that I did not go to the store. I had my daughter grab me a gallon of milk when she was out because she was coming over. So I had told him that, but he did not hear it. And he started, ramping up into a rage about the fact that there was nothing there for him to drink. And I finally said, what is wrong with you? I said, if this was just about tea, you have legs, you would get yourself something to drink. What's wrong? Well, he took that as a narcissistic injury. You have legs, and he went ballistic. And so I let her listen to that. And I let her listen to several things, and we talked. And basically she said, it sounds like the main reason that you're still in this relationship is out of fear. And I said, it is. It's out of fear. It's out of fear of the repercussions of getting him out, because I live in a small town and I don't want my house on the news. I don't want my life, police coming to the house. I don't want all of that. I also don't want, to have to give my daughter over to him during his visitations. And although I know he loves her, I do believe as she gets older and wants to have her own thought processes, he'll either screw them up to match his, or he'll end up hating her because she's not perfect and sweet and innocent anymore. And I know that about him. He acts like he has a heart for innocence. Dogs, cats, if he sees a show where they're being tortured or something like that, he can't watch it. I mean, even those commercials where they're trying to get donations for pets and so forth, that he can't watch it. He can't watch anything to do with children being harmed, because emotionally it destroys him, and then he's angry, and then he takes it out on somebody. So the innocence, portraying someone as innocent, is very important to him. But anyway, so as I'm questioning, why does this therapist not want me to research, I started making notes about why would I do that. And I would have never learned about two major concepts that to me are like the foundation of knowing there's something wrong with the person, and the foundation of knowing that it's narcissistic personality disorder. And I may be wrong about that. A therapist might correct me, but I'm just saying in my own situation. And that is whole object relations and object constancy. And whole object relations is the idea that you're either all good or all bad. That's how they see you. They do not have whole object relations where I can see someone and love them, and they just did this really dumb thing or this really mean thing, but they ultimately I still love them. I can say, like to my daughter, I mean, she went through a spell when she was 16, 17. It was a pretty rough time, but I never stopped loving her. I always loved her, and I always saw that she still had good in her, but she had these bad things going on. And with a narcissist, they don't have that whole object relations. They cannot take in all of the information about a person and hold on to the good thoughts of them while filtering in that they just disappointed you or that they were not perfect. And their standard is very high in perfection. And, if you have a differing opinion, a differing action than what they would do, you're automatically on the shit list, automatically. And that's the rage. I mean, you're fine 1 minute, and then you say something like, you have legs, you could have got your own tea, and you are hated. I mean, hated. I mean, he after that, he called me every name under the sun, and he will say things like, I hate you, or, you're human garbage, you're disgusting, all of a sudden from this one little narcissistic injury. And the other thing is object constancy, which pretty much goes hand in hand with that, and it's the ability to maintain a positive emotional connection when you're angry or hurt. When he becomes angry, he can't maintain a positive connection with you. Therefore, you are instantly garbage. You are instantly at the bottom of the shit can. And that's how he is with everything, and I watch it in him. The dog, for instance, he loves the dog, but the minute she poops on the floor, he hates her, and he will say the most cruel things. And thank God she doesn't understand, because he will say, and he doesn't physically touch her, but he will say things about her or to her, like, I hope you get hit by a car, or, really mean, terrible things. Like, not having object constancy and whole object relations means you go from, someone is acceptable to literally hating their guts, their existence, and wishing they would die. Like, it's not just a small, tilt in how you feel. It is completely destroyed how you feel, that you see, and that's where you're put. And so then all of this negative stuff comes out and gets flung in your face, you as the victim, and you're supposed to go on in a relationship with that person like nothing happened when they go back to you're okay again. And they have this memory loss or they do not understand or comprehend the depth of what they just did to you. They never, ever understand or admit to the level or the depth of the harm that they did. So, and the other part of that is, why do you research? When I started reading about narcissistic personality disorder, that's when I saw that they will accuse you of the very same things they're doing. The character flaws they see within themselves, they have to project out somewhere so they don't have to process them in their opinion of themselves, because they need to keep their opinion of themselves high. So they project them out at you. You're the target. And so I was the cheat. I was, this horrible person, and always talking about, I always wanted sex. That's all I wanted. And we're talking about a relationship where I have completely shut down and never, ever expressed any of my own needs or desires to him. Never. And, so for him to say those things to me is like, it doesn't even fit in the character of what you see of me, because you don't see any of that from me. It's because it's from him. And so research enabled me to uncover the truth of why he was accusing me of all those things. And I have countless hours of audio of him calling me crazy for me questioning that. Why does he do that? And on top of him having his own odd behavior of leaving the house at night, not coming back for 2 or 3 hours, taking a shower before he leaves, and he drives. He just likes to drive because that's what gives him relief or whatever. And he's always been one to say that. And so for, the first 4 years or whatever it was, I guess it was 5 years actually, for the first 5 years, he did this behavior, and I did not know that he was actually having sexual relations with people. That, not maybe all the time, but some of the time. And so research showed me that I could put spyware on his phone and I could find out what he was doing, and that's what I did. And when I did that, I found out that he was on Meet Me, and he was hooking up with people. And I found research gave me the intuition to take all the numbers on his phone, no matter what they said, and to find out where they were at. And so one of them said it was a car lot. It wasn't. It was a hookup person, that type of thing. One of them, he would always say he had a friend that he and his wife, Heather and Stone, and they were friends, and there was somebody in Peru. He would never say who. He would just say he went to Peru. But all of those proved to be no Stone, just Heather. And then there was the Peru girl, Michelle. And then there was the hookups, and then there was the videos that I found of him with other women. Several videos. There were pictures. There were many videos that I don't know for sure. They looked like home videos to me, but I could not identify the other person that I could hear was recording enough to know if it was him or if it was just a video. I really don't know, but very much creeped out by that whole situation. And I would still be in the dark today if I hadn't have used my intuition and started researching. So we researched to uncover the lies, to expose the lies, to determine if the threats they're making might be true. Like, did he threaten you when you were with him? That type of thing. Seeking the truth. Like, once I exposed these people and they were willing to talk to me, I uncovered many truths that, where he had out lied to me. Simple stuff that might not be a big deal to someone, but like, for instance, he came home one time at 3 a.m. with a couch and a dog, and it ended up that the dog most definitely was from one of the girls. And then I had, at one point, he told me that he was going to bring me a kitten, and he never followed through with that. And then years later, when I find the girl, she looked on my Facebook, and she said, you know what, that cat, that was my cat. He was going to take it. And then it also gave me, I had chances to ask them just all kinds of questions. Did he rage at you? This type of thing. One girl, and to uncover the truth of the fact that he was using these girls for specific things, which I'm not going to go into because they're illegal. But he was using them for things that he couldn't get me to do. And so that tells you the level, and once he was flushed out, he immediately, apologies and all of this. And I'll never forget the look on his face when I finally told him that I knew. And everything changed. And then all of a sudden, but he still lied all those years. And he still called me crazy when I said that the dog came from a girl, that I just knew the dog had to have come from a girl. And he called me crazy about several things, which I finally then determined I was not crazy. My intuition was dead on. And he was out and out lying to my face, and he would say things like, I swear on my daughter's life, and he was lying. And so now, when he says those exact same things, look at me, look me in the face, I'm telling you the truth, I swear on Zoe's life, I don't believe it at all. So research showed me the path, the way. At least it gave me the truth of the situation, and helped me to come to terms with the reality of the situation, which is that it is not you. It is not a normal relationship. It is not, you expecting too much from somebody. There is something very seriously wrong, and it helps you to make sense of the situation that you find yourself in, that you have no prior experience with which to relate this into, your life. Like, you have no way of understanding this because it's so odd, so rare, so I think unusual, and it just totally takes you by surprise. And if I didn't research, I wouldn't have known any of this. So if you are a researcher, or if you're in a situation with a narc and you're still there, don't stop researching. Keep researching, because that's what will show you truth. And without truth, you will be stuck thinking it's you, that it's you that's at fault, and that you need to change somehow, or that what he or she is saying about you is true. And just keep in touch with your intuition and research. Find out everything you can about this person. Find out everything you can about their past relationships. Find out everything you can about what they're doing currently. Because I guarantee you, they're so secretive, they will not share a morsel of the underlying their life with you. What you are allowed to know about them is just what you see, face value, in front of you every day. They will not include you in all of this other stuff, because that would be exposing them, and that would be taking away their possible future supply that they might be cultivating, or their flying monkeys that they might need to invoke at a later date, or whatever. But you can guarantee, if you don't research, you're not going to know any of that. So that's all. Way longer than I thought. Take care, and hope to make future videos. Thanks. Have a great day.